What's good, YouTube? We're starting in about 30 seconds, so let's rock and roll.
And here we go.
It's the Benjamin Dixon Show.
Your mission, should you choose to accept it, is
not merely peace in our time, but peace in all time.
I have no fear whatsoever of anybody or anything.
Did you think no one was watching?
Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere.
your mission.
Suppose we go where no man has gone before.
To reclaim the American dream,
To be given the right of human beings to be afforded equal rights and equal opportunities. By any means necessary.
It's the Benjamin Dixon Show. If you're hearing his voice, you're hearing the voice of reason.
You've certainly come to the right place.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Benjamin Dixon Show. I am your host, Benjamin Dixon. Of course, I say that every morning, and you know who I am, so maybe one day I'll stop saying that, but it's kind of like my comfort blanket. That's the way I just kind of break in and get the day rolling. But it is a beautiful, you cannot beat the month of September in Massachusetts, in the Northeast. It is a beautiful day, a stunningly beautiful day here in Boston. And it was about 50 degrees outside this morning. So, you have to be careful just walking out in short pants. But anyway, it's September 16th, 2015. Tonight is the big night for the Republican debate, the second Republican debate. And I promise you, watching the debate is kind of like watching reality TV. And I always, me and my wife have a big disagreements on, I just don't like reality TV. I particularly don't like the Real Housewives of anything, right? Love and Hip Hop. I absolutely hate those shows. But my wife, she likes to watch them because, it gives her somewhat of a comedic relief after her day working and toiling in the places that she works. So I that's enough about that. But reality TV is exactly what American politics has become, particularly with Donald Trump, of course, who is the master of reality television. But I have to confess that when I watch these Republican debates, I watch them almost with the same, that same thing that draws people to reality TV, the drama, the fights, who's going to get in whose face, who's going to say what about the other person. Are they really going to back up their words? Or are they just going to talk it and not say it? It's that same type of drama. And Fox News and CNN, they know this. They know that even those of us who try to be intellectual, at the end of the day, we're just as messy and junk television prone as anyone else. And we're not above the fray. So all of that to say, I am looking forward to the idiocy that will be on display tonight at the Republican national debate. Unfortunately for Democrats, they won't get nearly as many ratings because I don't believe the Democratic competition debate will be remotely as interesting as that of the Republican Party. And that's a good thing. I think some things in life should be serious. When we're talking about foreign relations, when we're talking about our relationship with Russia, our relationship with China, and how we're going to handle ISIS, when we're talking about international relations and foreign affairs, we should have some serious people on the stage. And we should have some serious conversations that's not put on television for ratings, for the entertainment purposes of the political class in America. That is exactly what the Republican Party has become. And the Democratic Party can't compete in terms of ratings, but in terms of the seriousness of the vote, I think there's just going to be no competition in 2016, unfortunately, because that's a detriment to America. That's a detriment to, it's bad enough that we have a two-party system. We need one of those parties to be viable, and the Republican Party is just no longer viable. I don't care what anyone says. You can call in and debate me, 857-600-0518. The Republican Party right now, where it stands, is not a viable party because you have the top two people, Donald Trump, Ben Carson. Donald Trump is playing to the lowest common denominator of every single American. He's appealing to the bigoted gene that the Republican Party has been playing to for the last 40, 50 years. That gene that has been here in America since its inception, right? It's not as though the racists and the homophobes and the xenophobes and the misogynists who are gathering inside of the Republican circles, it's not as though they are brand new to American society. They have always been here in America, and they have not always identified as Republicans. They have identified in the past as Democrats. There has always been and probably will always be that base that loves the type of rhetoric and hate-filled platitudes that Donald Trump offers. The question is whether or not we as America are going to accept that. And it appears that an entire party has become inundated so much with that type of ideology that Donald Trump, a person like Donald Trump, who has nothing to offer other than his nationalistic rhetoric and his xenophobic fear-mongering, a person like that could be in the front runner, can be the front runner, and all but untouchable, unstoppable. I do not see a single Republican who can beat Donald Trump at this juncture. None. Of course, there may be some games that the Republican National Committee can play with delegates when the convention actually meets, because that's what's most important. You want to make sure that you have enough delegates seated for you and that are going to not switch their vote. There are so many types of games that national parties can play to ensure that you get the candidate that they want you to have. And you have to watch out for that on the Democratic side too, right? It's quite possible that it will be a very close competition with some delegates between Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders. And the party, the national establishment, is able to work their magic to get who they want, unless it's just a landslide and there's no competition. What's shaping up on the Republican side is a landslide and no competition when the top two people that you have to offer the nation are the likes of Donald Trump and Ben Carson. Ben Carson, who is just as unserious as Donald Trump, just as empty in terms of policy as Donald Trump. Neither one of them have anything substantive to say on policy. Let me start with Donald Trump. Donald Trump did two speeches. He did a speech on on Tuesday night and a speech on Monday night. Both of those speeches were supposed to be full of policy, and you saw in both instances that there was no policy to be offered because he had none. And either he's completely void of policy or he's completely incapable of communicating policy. Either way, Donald Trump is not a serious person who should be the front runner of the Republican Party. Now, as a progressive and a person who has generally voted with the Democratic Party, I mean, that's a good thing. That's a good thing for presidential politics for progressives. But that's not a good thing for America, because then it becomes not a question of two parties debating ideas. It becomes a question of one party debating ideas. But that is exactly the place that the Republican Party has taken themselves. Donald Trump at his meeting, at his rally on Monday night, I believe. What's today? Today's Wednesday, so that must have been Monday, in Dallas. He got nearly 15,000 people into a stadium, an arena in Dallas. It was a 20,000 seater, and he almost filled it up. And he got out there to talk about policy and had nothing to say. And what's more revealing is that the people in the audience didn't care. Matter of fact, the only time the audience woke up, according to NPR, was when he started talking about immigration. And he started talking about building a wall. And he started talking about deporting millions of illegal immigrants. And that is when the people went crazy. You would have thought in a rational America, in a nation that is dealing with normal, rational times and normal, rational people, you would have thought Donald Trump would have been out the door from his opening speech when he talked about Mexicans being rapists and murderers. And I guess some of them are good people, but they're not sending us their best. But what he said resonated with such a large percentage of Republicans that he has remained the front runner. And this is now not only something, it wasn't just a gimmick to get him started. This is his bread and butter. He can talk about how stupid he thinks other people are. He can talk about all of his money. He can talk about all of these things and people will oblige him. But when he talks about his nationalistic fear mongering and xenophobia, when he feeds them that, that's when they come to life. And that should tell you everything you need to know about the state of the Republican Party right now. I was reading an article in Politico, and I'll post the links on different locations. You can read it for yourself. But it began talking about the way Donald Trump supporters treated the protesters who were outside of the Dallas Stadium. One woman, white woman, said in Spanish and in English that Mexicans are the hairs in her asshole. And then another guy came along and said that that we've been patient enough, but they have been doing too much damage to us. And the reason I support Trump is because he wants to deport all 11 million of them. And I think that's exactly what we need to do. I'm paraphrasing at this point. This is what they desperately want and need. And I keep hearing people talking about, well, who's going to challenge him? Who's going to attack him? Which Republican candidate is going to call him out? Here's the problem. It's not that Donald Trump is going unchallenged. And it's not that they are afraid to challenge. Well, I think they are afraid to challenge Donald Trump. But that's not the problem. The problem is what Donald Trump is saying is exactly what a very large percentage of the Republican base wants to hear. And so if somebody tries to attack him on the things that they want to hear, it's going to backfire. There is nothing that Bobby Jindal can say to hurt Donald Trump because Donald Trump is playing to the lowest common denominator. You can't do a scorched earth policy with Donald Trump. He's already scorched the earth. So he has nothing to lose with the base of people who have come out in full support of him. That's the entire point. And so while everyone is trying to figure out how they're going to remove him from the top of the Republican polls, the problem is you cannot remove him because the people who have fallen in love with him are living and breathing that same type of hatred, bigotry, xenophobia, racism, and even misogyny. I mean, there's really nothing that Donald Trump presents that has any virtue, and they love every bit of it. That, my friends, is where your conservative Republicans are right now. And then you have Ben Carson, who represents the other side of conservatism, which is the religious zealots, the people who want to control you based on their faith, the people who don't feel like their faith is good enough for them, it's good enough for you, right? That's who Ben Carson, and that's where he's soaring. He's soaring with evangelicals. Evangelicals have not yet completely bought into Donald Trump because Donald Trump still can't quote a Bible scripture that is his favorite, right? So there are some evangelicals who are seeing through that, and they're overwhelmingly going to support Ben Carson. Okay, here's the problem with that. People like Ben Carson give birth to people like, of course, I'm talking figuratively, right? I shouldn't have to give that caveat. He's the person, that type of mentality has given birth to people like Kim Davis in Kentucky. Kim Davis, who on her, I didn't get a chance to talk about her yesterday, but going back to work, Kim Davis gave this long enough speech, talking about how she's not going to stop her deputy clerks from filing marriage licenses, but they won't have her approval. They won't have her endorsement. They won't have her blessing. And she insinuated that they won't be valid. That was the insinuation that she was making, right? And so questions of validity do come up in terms of what does the law really say in Kentucky with regard to a clerk signing a marriage license or not. But the point is that religious zealotry that is propelling Ben Carson to the number 2 spot is the same religious zealotry that is mobilizing people like Kim Davis and all of her supporters. So you look at the top 2 representations of the Republican Party right now, and you see the one that's outperforming all of them is the bigoted, the racist, the xenophobe, the homophobe, the people who absolutely love everything that Donald Trump says, and Donald Trump can do no wrong because he allows them to come out of the closets and allows them to come out and be proud to be a bigot, right? There's no shame in their bigotry. They can go to a Donald Trump rally and shout white power. They can go to a Donald Trump rally and talk about Mexican rapists, right? And anchor babies. So they're in love with him because they no longer have to hide in the shadows where they have been relegated in the Republican Party for the last 40 years. Now they can come out. That's the number one, 31% who like Donald Trump. That's who they are. And then, of course, you have the other who are supporting Ben Carson, who are the religious zealots, which leaves the establishment of the Republican Party in quite a difficult position. And you know what? That is their fault. That is what they get. They have made their bed. This should have been a cakewalk for Jeb Bush, but Jeb Bush is looking like Martin O'Malley. Quite frankly, I like Martin. He's an okay guy. But in terms of numbers, in terms of media presence, in terms of appeal with the base and the establishment, for that matter, Jeb Bush is looking horrible. Marco Rubio, who doesn't stand a chance when we're talking about. I mean, Marco Rubio would literally have to sell his Cuban soul to be the front runner in this party today. He just would have to sell his Hispanic. He would have to give up too much. And I think he's willing to. I don't think he has much of a soul left, so he might as well sell what he has. But he doesn't stand a chance in this party today. Mike Huckabee, he's being outdone by Ben Carson, who I think they are propelling Ben Carson because of his religious values and because of his skin color. They figure they can galvanize the black vote. I think there's still some misconception. There's really this mental lapse, which is an understatement in the Republican Party. There's this mental lapse where they think that if they put up a black Christian, that they will get the black vote, despite all of the racist overtones that are inundating, that are just coming out of and being exuded by the Republican base. They actually think that having a black face on a conservative policies and Christian rapping is going to be enough to get the black vote. That shows you how out of touch some of them really are. So this is what you're going to see on stage tonight. You're going to see all of these people who are doing their best to get a little bit of light, to get a little bit of shine in the shadow of Donald Trump. But it's not just Donald Trump being Donald Trump. Donald Trump was Donald Trump 4 years ago when he ran. Donald Trump today has found out the reality about a very large segment of America. And that reality is that they want, they crave, they have been waiting so long for the opportunity to be loud and proud about their bigotry, unapologetic about their bigotry. And Donald Trump has given them this opportunity. And we have seen twice this week, two different speeches that were set up to be policy speeches. We see that he has no substance, but they don't care. They don't care that he doesn't have any viable policies on Syria, on ISIS, on a valid immigration policy. They don't care that everything that he says is almost impossible to accomplish without tanking the American economy, or it's just not viable logistically, right? They don't care about that because Donald Trump allows them to get together with other like-minded people. It's kind of like church. Get together with other like-minded people, and they get to shout at the top of their lungs about how they hate and how they want immigrants and minorities and women and everyone else that Donald Trump derides. They want them to stay in their place. And that's what they've been waiting to do for the last 40 years. And now that is what the Republican Party has become. All right, enough about that. When I come back, I don't know, I'll take some calls. 857-600-0518. We'll talk a little bit more about Kim Davis and Ben Carson. We'll be back after this.
When you're ready to lose weight, why count, track, and worry over every meal? Jenny Craig makes it simple. Just walk into a neighborhood Jenny Craig center or give us a call. You'll meet your dedicated personal consultant who helps you reach your goals. Together, you'll pick out delicious Jenny Craig foods that you'll love and design a menu that fits your life. And the best part is that you can get started losing weight today. Don't wait any longer to take advantage of our best offer ever. Call 1-800-JENNY20 or visit jennycraig.com.
This is the sound of salmonella gyrating on your undercooked chicken. And it looks like Mom might be taking it out a little early. Don't let salmonella get funky with your chicken. On average, 1 in 6 Americans will get a foodborne illness this year. So use a thermometer to cook each type of meat to the right temperature. Keep your family safe at foodsafety.gov. Brought to you by the USDA, HHS, and the Ad Council.
On the next episode of Recipes for Disaster.
I'm making beef sliders for my friend Sandy. Nana taught me to always pull meat off the grill early so it's extra juicy.
Use a food thermometer to ensure ground beef is 160 degrees, or you could make people really sick. Sandy didn't think twice about the slider she ate until yoga class, when a nasty case of food poisoning turned her downward-facing dog into upward-moving lunch. Watch Recipes for Disaster at foodsafety.gov and learn the steps Maria unwittingly leaves out. Brought to you by the USDA, HHS, and the Ad Council.
When I grow up, I want to be a new pair of blue jeans.
When I grow up, I want to be a kid's first computer.
Warm fleece on a cold day. I want to be a bike that races around the country.
I want to be a bench on a forest trail.
When I grow up, I don't want to be a piece of garbage. And if you recycle me, I won't be.
Give your garbage another life. Recycle. Learn how at iwanttoberecycled.org. Brought to you by Keep America Beautiful and the Ad Council.
Welcome back to the Benjamin Dixon Show. If you're hearing his voice, you're hearing the voice of reason.
Welcome back, folks. Welcome back. All right, caller, what is your name, comment, and or question?
Hi, this is Frederick Wilson. How you doing, Ben?
Fred, how's it going, man? How's everything over there at Survival Radio Network?
Everything is lovely on the Survival Radio Network. Been checking out the show, and sometimes I can't get you early in the morning, but I listen to the podcast. Good stuff going on. Good stuff.
Thanks, man. I can't believe you're saying that. Yeah, I knew you were calling to push back. All right, Fred, folks, just let me introduce. This is a good friend of mine, Frederick Wilson. He hosts a show, Let's Talk Politics, on Monday night on the Survival Radio Network. And we are just, he's a brother from another mother, but also from another ideology. We disagree on everything. So go for it. Push back. What do you have for me?
Yeah, and I was saying you call the show. That's why I listen to it. It's good stuff. But when you're talking about the Republicans and doing their debates, and the Democrats are not doing their debates. Now, I've been pondering this, and I've been submitting this for a while. It's come to conclusion. I'm going to run this by you and tell me what you think.
Okay.
I submit to you that the average Republican is more informed than the average Democrat, and here's why. It's about politics. Because I'm gonna you tell me what you think now. Listen to what I got. Tell me what you think. Okay. And your listeners too.
Okay, I'm gonna give you a chance. Go for it.
Republicans have Rush Limbaugh, Mark Levin, Sean Hannity, and a whole host of other nationally known radio figures. Where is the Democrat equivalent? I say there isn't one. The only thing that the Democrats had a while ago was Al Franken on his Air America, and it kept going out of business. And then he had to get government subsidized, and it shut down. And the reason why is because he didn't have enough listeners. He talked from a Democrat liberal point of view, but Democrats and liberals do not pay attention to politics like Republicans do. And even if you think Rush Limbaugh and those guys are one-sided, they aren't objective. You have to admit, though, whatever they're one-sided about or not objective about, at the very least, they're bringing the situation to the forefront so people can at least know what's going on. And after they put their spin on it, because they do, you still know what's up. But who's bringing that liberal stuff? Who's got that liberal following?
Well, okay. So in all fairness to liberals, I wasn't available back then. That's why, but there was. Now, I'm going to tell you the one person that I was a great fan of, and then of course you're wrong, right? Let me start there. You're wrong, and I'll tell you why you're wrong.
Of course I am.
Okay, I'll tell you why you're wrong in a second, but I just want to give a unnecessary plug to my favorite radio host who's no longer on the air, Randy Rhodes. Randy Rhodes was just she would take Rush Limbaugh it was nothing for her to destroy Rush Limbaugh, but she's no longer on the air. Here's the reality of it. Radio and television is entertainment. People don't listen to radio and television for information. What you are getting from Rush Limbaugh and Mark Levin and everyone on the right is not information. You are getting lies, propaganda. And let me take that back. I'll take that back, even though it's true. I want to focus on the fact that they are giving people the same thing that Donald Trump is feeding people, and that is that very quiet. Well, Donald Trump isn't quiet, but with Rush Limbaugh, he wasn't quiet. But there's always this undertone, and you have a lot of noise in your background. So, there's this undertone in conservative radio that feeds and fuels that bigotry that they love to hang on to. There is a reason people listen to Rush Limbaugh, even though Rush Limbaugh is filled with propaganda. That's because Rush Limbaugh feeds that same exact bigoted gene that Donald Trump is feeding. And so there is no competition for the most part. Now, I do know we have some shills. We have one or two shills in the liberal land. Right. There are some guys that I won't listen to because I think that they try to go with the route of propaganda, and I won't name their names out of respect. Right. But we do not have anyone on a national level who is fueling hatred and bigotry and fear-mongering, constant fear-mongering. And that is the formula that wins for conservatism. That's why Fox News is number one. That's why Rush Limbaugh is number one. Rush Limbaugh is even above NPR, who is not liberal. NPR just gives you the bland story, and they wrap it with some nice music in the interludes. So it's not that progressives and liberals don't want information. It's that conservatives are looking for that same animus to be fed to them that Donald Trump is feeding to them. All right, Fred, you got it.
All right, hello, you broke up. I didn't get the last 3-4 seconds.
The last 3-4 seconds I simply said is that it's not that liberals don't want information, it's that conservatives want to be fed all of the things that keeps that scratches that lowest base. It's like pornography. This is what I called it to before. It's like pornography. You can't help but, or it's like a wreck on the side of the road. You can't help but to look at it, and it plays to something in you that you can't turn away. And that's what conservatism feeds. And that's why Donald Trump, Fox News, and Rush Limbaugh are all successful.
Okay, I disagree with that, of course. But here's the flip side. Outside of what the Rush Limbaugh followers and the Mark Levin, all those followers, who is putting up something that a liberal, that a Democrat would listen to that is political? How are they getting the information? Because whether it's a bunch of hate mongers or not in the Republican side, the conservative side, the evangelicals, they still have a desire to hear what's going on, even if it's spun in a way that feeds their hatred, as you call it, their bigotry, their xenophobia, the homophobia, whatever it is. They still have that desire. There's a desire in a liberal, the average one, the average Democrat, to get political information. And how come there has been no one? You say you knew you on the scene. Yes, you're doing your thing, but you just got here. Rush Limbaugh and other guys have been here for years. Where are the Democrats that are demanding true information? That's why I submit they don't care enough to produce somebody that could start a business and make money and keep it going.
Fred, I've tried it. So I'm going to, your entire premise is faulty because you're coming from a point of misinformation. You don't realize how many progressives and liberals are out there consuming information. What we do, we read. We read.
I'm saying on a scale. I'm not saying on a scale of a Rush Limbaugh to have that number, because there's a whole lot more.
But you missed the whole point. You missed the whole point. Why do you think? Let me ask you this question. Why do you think there were 24 million people who watched the Republican debate? Not because of information, Fred. There was no information given. There were 24 million people who watched the Fox News debate because it was pure entertainment. It was pure foolishness. It was idiocy. It was fear mongering. It was bigotry. It was all those things that are coming back to destroy the Republican Party. And I think you should, of all people, should be able to see that what Donald Trump is doing to your party is so detrimental to your party and to America. But that's exactly what Rush Limbaugh and Fox News and conservative radio in general, that's exactly what they have done over the last couple of years. Fred, thanks so much for your call, man. You feel free to call in anytime. You're the one conservative that I don't mind talking with on a regular basis. But you've got nothing. You've got nothing and you get nothing. You lose, sir.
So you get nothing. You lose. Good day, sir.
All right. All right, folks. So moving on, going back to, you know, I don't even want to address what Fred said anymore because it's just coming from such a place of not knowing, Fred. It's just if you found out how many progressives and liberals are consuming knowledge on a regular basis, your entire argument would you wouldn't even bring that argument to the table. But the real question is the damage. What about the damage? And maybe I shouldn't have disconnected you because I want to know what Republicans think about the damage that Donald Trump is doing to the only other party that is viable in the United States. You know, it's not healthy for America to have a one-party system, obviously, right? There are a lot of countries. There's a lot of talk about China and Russia, and particularly China and their economy. And the fact that China is now, I'm going way left field to make a point, so stay with me. China is now a capitalistic society in terms of their market, but they are still an authoritarian regime, one-party system, right? And there are some people in conservative thought who believe that a one-party system is beneficial. I'm sure there's some liberal thinkers that believe that a one-party system is beneficial. But in terms of democracy, it is not healthy for America to have one party that is valid and another party that is complete buffoonery, because it doesn't give viable options to America for us to have a rational, reasonable debate. All right, caller, you're live on the air. What's your name, comment, and our question?
Hey, Ben, how you doing? This is Patrick again, man.
Patrick.
Hey, question for you.
Go for it.
Okay, so there's a quote that Will Rogers says. He says, everything is changing. People are taking their comedians seriously and the politicians as a joke. And I wonder if what is happening to us is that we have literally gotten to a place that people are sick and tired of the stuff that politicians do. Sure, they may have more on positioning. Yes, they may have the intellect and the wherewithal to develop great policy statements, but these guys don't literally have the wherewithal to stand for their principles, and they change like the weather. And there is a great belief that many of them have been purchased by big money. So because of that, you have coming up, and I believe this is one of the things that the media gazes on. And I heard, I can't remember the guy who's the editor-in-chief of Vox. He began to bring this up a little bit on All In. He began to talk about the idea. Could it just simply be that America is shifting and changing? Could it be that people have gotten to be so cold and callous to the political status quo that they are willing to look for something most politicians don't have, which is honesty? And that becomes just a question of why is it that Trump is surging now, but also on the other side of it, why many people are flocking to feel the burn. So my thing is that I just sense that there could be some nuances or some changes, and I would love to hear your thoughts on it.
All right, not a problem, man. Thanks so much for your call, and I will be glad to address that issue. So here's the thing, Patrick. I think there is a lot of credence to what you said, and this is why a lot of people try to compare Bernie Sanders to Donald Trump. Here's the problem with that. Bernie Sanders is wrapping his outside truth-telling in actual policies that we happen to agree with, but they're actual policies, and they're actually actual positions, and they have historical credibility and validity. They actually have been tested in the past and in other countries and to success. Donald Trump is not offering any policies. And that's the biggest thing. He is only offering one thing, and that is the bigotry, the open, unashamed bigotry. Now, if Donald Trump was an outsider who was coming with actual policies that were something that we can sit down and compare side by side to, let's say, a Jeb Bush or a Marco Rubio, or even across the aisle and to Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders, then we would say, okay, he's an outsider. And he has some policies. We don't necessarily agree with those policies, but he's offering something. Donald Trump is offering nothing except for xenophobia. I'm waiting. I really wish, and because I'm a troll at my heart, and so forgive me, but I really wish Donald Trump would try. I mean, I wish he would attack the Black community like he's doing the Hispanic community and Mexicans. I want to, because I think he's smart enough to realize that he couldn't get away with that. That's why I want him to try it. Unfortunately, America allows, and I don't know if you guys hear that, apparently they're doing some construction here. America allows at sundry times, at different points, they allow a group to be the punching bag of America. And for the last, I would say, easily 20 years, Mexicans and Hispanics in general, immigrants, have come to the forefront of that punching bag. Some of them don't realize it, right? Some of them in America, and they think that everything is fine and that America's perfect for them and they're conservatives and all this, but they don't realize they are the punching bag of America. African Americans, we've been the punching bag forever, but it is just not as acceptable. And I really want to see him attack African Americans and see how that plays out for him, because it seems like he can attack anybody and get away with it. I just don't think he can do it with us. But I digress. That's besides the point. The point is this: Donald Trump has not offered anything substantive because he realizes his bread and butter is his rhetoric on immigration. And that rhetoric on immigration is playing to the lowest common denominator. Are there people in the Donald Trump contingency who may be uncomfortable with his rhetoric, but like the idea that he's an outsider and that at least he's telling the truth? I think that's what you were trying to get at, Patrick. I believe that's a possibility, but you have to examine yourself and say, who am I aligning myself with? If I look around in a room and that room is full of a bunch of white people who are shouting and cheering and reveling in the fact that Donald Trump is talking about anchor babies, and Donald Trump is calling Mexican rapists, and Donald Trump is going to deport 11, 12 million people. If I'm surrounded by that, then you really have to question yourself of who have you aligned yourself with and why. For the sake of having somebody who is an outsider, I mean, in that case, then go with Ben Carson, because at least Ben Carson is not, well, no, you can't go with Ben Carson either, because he's an open bigot on a lot of issues as well. I think there is a dynamic change in America. I agree with you. I just think that the conservative side of that change has opted to go with an outsider who is an unabashed, unashamed bigot. And it is to the detriment of the Republican Party, definitely, and ultimately the detriment of the American, our nation in general. Because if we don't have someone to challenge our ideas, let's just say there's enough problems in the Democratic circles that we need people to challenge our ideas too. And if we don't have a serious person to compete with, then all of us lose. All of us lose all the way around the board. All right, folks, I'm gonna take one more quick break. When I come back, I'll take these next few calls I see coming up. 857-600-0518. This is the Benjamin Dixon Show.
You're tuned in to the Benjamin Dixon Show. Join the conversation. 857-600-0518.
Looking for the right business opportunity? Need the right product, the right marketing plan, and the absolute best training in the world? Well, look no further. The elite team. Every leader in time excels. They believe the key ingredients in becoming successful in life and in business are just a keystroke away. Go to www.eliteteamsite.com. That's www.eliteteamsite.com. The Elite Team has a system in place that will move you closer to achieving your goals and dreams. Visit www.eliteteamsite.com or TonyFlemingEnterprises.com today.
College is important, but it can also be expensive. College Planning Services is a group of educators, administrators, counselors, and other licensed professionals that work together to provide the necessary services, networks, and information to reach students that are serious about getting a college education. College Planning Services partners with financial institutions, corporate sponsors, and other major players in the global market to strategize in building a pool of information regarding financial aid, scholarships, and funding information to assist students in preparing to access the essential resources to build upon their path to an educational future. Learn more at collegeplanningtoday.com and let us help you start your college career.
Do you want to take your business to the next level? Ultimate Business Solutions provides the support you need to increase your customer base and sell more products and services online. Specializing in graphic arts, web development, and internet marketing, Ultimate Business Solutions creates the face of your business. If you're looking for a custom logo, dynamic website, or popping marketing material, call Ultimate Business Solutions today at 404-704-2197 or visit www.ultimatebizsolutions.com. Ultimate Business Solutions. Let us create your future.
Do you have tax issues, owe back taxes, or need tax relief? Contact L&B Tax Service today. L&B offers you over 15 years of expertise and first-class tax service for individuals, professionals, and business owners. With nationwide service, you can easily find a location near you. Contact one of our tax professionals through our website, lbtaxservice.com. That's www.lbtaxservice.com. L&B Tax Service Incorporated. Tax professionals that you can trust.
You've tuned in to The Benjamin Dixon Show.
Hey, no, no, no. Hey, no, no.
Welcome back. I am looking. This is what happens when you let your kids use your stuff. I'm looking on my iPad for my email tool, and my email tool is just completely gone. I sent myself in my email some particular notes that I wanted to use, so I guess I'm just gonna have to go from memory yet again. Yeah, I've got to go from memory. So what I was working on this morning and reading about this morning was just how much substance the Republican Party lacks this time around. In general, particularly with ISIS. So ISIS is on the international front. ISIS is one of the preeminent threats to our allies in the region. I was reading an article from, I don't want to credit the wrong people, so I won't credit them at all, but I was reading someone, and at the end of that article, actually it was from Reuters article. And at the end, it was so poignant because after an entire diatribe about the policies and the mistakes, the missteps with regard to ISIS, the reality of it is that ISIS is not a threat to the United States because they couldn't do anything to us, an existential threat, mind you. Of course, they can carry out minor, they can carry out not even minor, they can maybe carry out major attacks, but they're not an existential threat to the United States. But two, they've made it clear that they're interested in developing a caliphate and not necessarily attacking the United States. But at the end of the article, he made it very poignant. He said the question is, should the United States get involved to assist our allies because ISIS is an existential threat to our allies, but not to the United States of America. Now, he said it much better than I did, but like I said, I'm going from memory here. And so as we talk about ISIS in that region, and then let's add on to that. Let's talk about Russia, right? And the fact that Russia has been escalating their aggressiveness, right? Russia has signaled that they are hearkening back to their hardliner days, especially with Putin, right? there are opportunities to work with Putin, but then there are absolutely threats that Putin, there are activities that Putin is engaging in that could pose a potential threat, especially when we're talking about Crimea and the Ukraine, and we're talking about how close Russian troops are operating near NATO. There are real problems in the international community that require serious solutions. And I was the last article I was reading this morning was from Politico, and Politico went down the list of all of the policy statements, not actual policy papers, but statements that have come from each of the Republican candidate with regard to Russia and with regard to ISIS. And then I was reading another article. This one's from NPR about the policy for immigration, right? From the Republican side, particularly Donald Trump. And every single one of their policy positions, with the exception of Lindsey Graham, who just has a really hawkish position and really wants to put boots on the ground, with the exception of Lindsey Graham, everyone's policies really just melted away into nothingness. For instance, particulars here, Donald Trump is saying that his plan to beat ISIS is to cut off their oil supply because he believes that that is their number one source of money. Well, it's been demonstrated since 2014 that the oil is not the leading revenue for ISIS. The leading revenue for ISIS is exploitation, right? Is their extraction of wealth from people and from banks, particularly in Iraq. So the hundreds of millions of dollars that they get, the millions of dollars that they get on a monthly basis, only a portion of that comes from oil. So his one policy, Donald Trump's single policy on ISIS, which gets him a thunderous applause, actually is not a solution whatsoever. You can cut off. We've been bombing the hell out of their oil revenues, right? We've taken them down from 11 million on a monthly basis to 2 million. We have really crippled their revenues with regard to oil, but they are still making their money by extracting money from the Iraqi National Bank and from taking it from I don't want to say exploiting. There's another word that's much better, and it escapes me, so I'm going to leave it alone. But that's where their revenues come from. And so here Donald Trump is on the national stage. He's offering the alternate opinion for how we should attack and handle ISIS. But the one thing that he said on it has no substance and is not even accurate. This is why, even at the beginning, even though I was just talking a little, I was just talking, when you actually look at the actual policies, they have no substance. Donald Trump's policy on building a wall, estimated, if you built a wall, I don't even know why we have to even give an estimation, right? Because it's idiotic. You know, people have been crossing walls for years. They got underneath the wall in Germany, separating West and East Germany. They got around that even under the threat of death, right? So the wall is not the solution, but let's go with it. The estimated cost of a wall to cover the entire border is $258 billion. He says he wants to use that, pay for that by taking the remissions, not remissions, I got to get the word, but the remittances. See, I'm going completely from memory here, folks. The remittances from illegal immigrants here in the United States sending money back to Mexico, right? Which only represents annually about $25 billion. Which actually keeps a lot of people in Mexico because it represents a large portion of their income. So there's no need for some family members to cross illegally because they're getting money from America, right? So he's going to exacerbate the problem even more, but it's not enough to build the wall. That's the thing. When you actually take the one or two things that he says, they don't add up whatsoever. And while I know that's not surprising to you or me, I know that is not surprising whatsoever. What is surprising is the number of people, and I believe, what is it, 31% now, the number of people who either just don't know this or simply do not care And the reason I believe they don't care is because they are so enthralled and so elated with his rhetoric and his harsh talking when he has no substance whatsoever to back it up. That is where we are. And there's not even a need for me to talk about the differences right now between Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders, right? Because that's, that's a difference between policy A and policy B. We can line it up and say, okay, this is what Hillary Clinton stands for. This is what Bernie Sanders stands for. Bernie Sanders wants a revolution. Hillary Clinton wants the status quo. We know that. There's no new information there. But what is astonishing to me is the number of Americans who don't care that their front runner has no substance whatsoever. And I believe that they don't care because they are simply elated with the opportunity to express this fear, this anger, this resentment towards people who haven't done anything to them. Nothing. Most of the people complaining about immigration don't even live near a border state. Most of the people complaining about immigration never lost a job to immigrants. Most of the people complaining about immigration don't even know what the reality of immigration is in the United States of America right now. But they just love the way that Donald talks about them. And then, of course, there's the Ben Carson's and his religious rhetoric, which I harp on here a lot. It is, I think to me, it is, I don't want to say sad, but it is. It's we are in the death pangs of the Republican Party. That's what I want to say. We are at a pivotal point where conservatives are being revealed for what they have always been. You have to understand, circa 1974, after the election of 1976, after the election of Jimmy Carter, Republicans realized that they were undone, that they really had no constituency that can keep them in power. And what they did in 1976 was to pull in the evangelical vote. And because they pulled in the evangelical vote, they had to incorporate all of their social warfare, all of their moral majority language, all of their religious zealotry. All of that was incorporated into the party because they needed that to get political power, and it gave them political power in 1980 with Ronald Reagan. That was the second phase. If you go back to Richard Nixon and you go back to Goldwater, you would realize that the Republican Party, conservatism could not win. Conservatism could not win, not on its own merits. And so what did they do? Richard Nixon start playing directly to the Southern strategy, start playing directly to the racist, xenophobe, the bigoted gene that is latent in America. And it's not just the Southern strategy, mind you. And let me go tangentially here. The Southern strategy is not about the South. The Southern strategy is about anyone in America, because I found a lot of them in Boston, who hates minorities or who has animosity towards minorities. So I'm not going to lay this all at the South because there's plenty here in Massachusetts, right? But they went with the Southern strategy with dog whistles, and they started communicating and started saying little subtle things like the welfare queen of Ronald Reagan, the things that would make them get off and make them look at look down on minorities. And that's how they galvanized an entire vote around bigotry. But that wasn't enough. 1976, they went ahead and galvanized the vote. 1980, around religious zealotry. Here's the magic of conservatism, of not conservatism, of the Republican establishment. For 30 years, since Ronald Reagan, and I would say around 40 years since Richard Nixon, they have been able to keep those ideologies and those crazy people at bay. They were able to get their vote and not do anything for them. They would be able to get their vote and with the rhetoric alone, but with no performance, right? Ronald Reagan was able to get the evangelical vote, but then to turn around and appointed a justice who was pro-choice, right? And George H.W. Bush was able to get the evangelical vote, but turn around and invite gay rights activists to the White House for the first time in history. So for 40 plus years, they have been able to get the vote of the Southern strategy bigots and the religious evangelical zealots. And now their chickens have come home to roost. They are not able to keep those people quiet anymore because you have been taken from them for the last 30, 40 years. And now it's time to pay the piper. And now you found a candidate who has mixed, who can just come to the front, and because of his popularity has no reason whatsoever to push those bigoted people who have always been there. He has no need to push them to the background because of how many there are and how much they love what he's saying. And then, of course, you have Ben Carson, who, the religious zealot that he is galvanizing the evangelical vote. This is the undoing of the Republican Party. The Republican Party is absolutely going to, one of two things. Either they are going to die out and something else will be formed, or they are going to find a way to co-opt those two groups yet again and try to keep them inside of the Republican Party. I do not think it's possible for them to keep those voters inside of the Republican Party anymore, because they have been with the Republican Party for so long and the Republican Party has not delivered on anything that they wanted. And if you make your bed with this type of constituency, I can't even talk this morning, with these type of voters, let me use an easier word. If you make your bed with these types of voters, then one day you're going to wake up and realize that you've been married to Donald Trump and it's too late to back out now. That's exactly where the Republican Party is. And that's what you're going to see on display tonight. And what you're going to see most of all, and I'm thinking about doing a live broadcast, just kind of a live reaction. I'll send out some emails. But what you're going to see most of all are establishment Republicans trying their best to get a voice and to be heard. But the establishment is the minority of the Republican Party. And that's been demonstrated because the Republican Party has been divided up into three factions: the bigots. and no, not all Republicans are bigots, all right? In all fairness, they're not, right? Fred, who called in, is a great dude. You know, we'll get a beer when I get back to Jacksonville, Fred. But you have an overwhelming amount of people who just love this rhetoric from Donald Trump. Then two, you have the religious contingency, and then you have the establishment. And we have seen that the establishment, the true establishment of the Republican Party, is the minority of the Republican Party. And the only way they've stayed in existence over the last 40 years is by co-opting the religious evangelical vote as well as the Southern strategy vote. And all of that has come to the top. All of it has been exposed thanks to Donald Trump. Folks, I wanted to do so much more, but I'm running out of time and I've got a lot to do and a lot of places to go. I really want to do, I wanted to do a special clip for you guys, but I'm going to have to table that until tomorrow. So until tomorrow, when we come back, keep an eye out for an email. I want you to sign up for my email list so I can keep you up to date. We may be doing tonight a special broadcast just for covering the Republican debate. And I will let you guys know this afternoon with an email. So go to thebenjamindixonshow.com just thebenjamindixonshow.com and sign up for our email list. And or you can go to facebook.com/The Benjamin Dixon Show. Click on the Contact Us tab and submit your information. And I think that's all I have. Sorry, caller, I missed your call, but I've got to go.
And until that moment comes, when we, the Americans, are able to accept the fact that on that continent we are trying to forge a new identity for which we need each other, that I am not a ward of America. I am one of the people who built the country. Until this moment.
That we are brothers. It's not a question of Jews or Christians or Muslims. We're all in the same boat.
We need each other.
Love is a condition so powerful. It may be that which holds the stars in the firmament.
Until this moment.
Love.
Until this moment.
Love.
Until this moment.
I come to you today
who say that we can build a newer and better nation. I say we can do so, that we must do so, and that we will do so.
You've tuned in to The Benjamin Dixon Show. Visit us online at www.thebenjamindixonshow.com.